Hey, welcome to another episode of Polytech podcast, part of the Wes Network. Check us out on weswesnet.com. I'm honored tonight to have my guest and good friend from back at varsity, Misa Tovia Va'ailua. Welcome, bro.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thanks. It's good to be here. Thanks, Cameron.
Hey, so I guess in terms of where do we start, can we go right back? I guess like I've read some of your articles on LinkedIn, and so I guess just to set the scene, can you, I guess, start with your parents' Malanga journey, bro? We go right back.
It's often whenever we talk about it, and so just paying respects to my parents, or probably kua'a is, my mum hails from Whalakai, where the buses go to turn around.
The end of the road.
Thank you, boys to men. And my father is from Lalumalava, so Whasaleanga region in Savai. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Is that where is that the resorts in that?
Yeah.
Oh,
and so I don't. All of my my father, when he was alive, would always talk to us about, you have to go back to do a sawha'i and get your swafa makai and stuff, or your title. And I said, oh no, Dad, that's not for me. That's I'm not wired that way. And then my grandma passes away, and I'm still living in Manila at the time. And then someone calls out and says, hey, Grandma said you have to come and you have to go get a title. I was like, and the problem was, Grandma had passed away. Oh. So I couldn't prove it.
So who called? Like someone?
So Mum's mum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Mum's mum passed away, but her final wish to our family was to tell that boy that's living in the Philippines, tell that singer to get over here and get a title. And my initial, and my wife will attest to this. My first response was, did anyone record that? I was like, your grandma just passed away. Don't you want to honor that? I was like, yeah, but how do I know that was really her request, or is it someone else that's wanting me to go do it? So then I said, oh yeah, okay. So then we came back, and then I went to Whalakai, and I did, and it's that firm belief in go hard or go home. So I went and did sawha'i for 3 titles. So I went and did Misa, Nanai, and Lupe Matasila.
Oh, wow.
And then because I don't know how much people know about Whalakai, but Whalakai is the kauaanga, and when you talk about the anga it's a region within Upolu, and so Whalakai was the only area where it was called the Taua Ana, which means it's the warfaring clans of the Ana.
Oh, okay.
So all the troublemakers were from that from that region. And so the interesting thing about Whalakai is that it's only ali'is. There's no
okay. Whais. So every title from there is an
ali'i. So now and in Whalakai you had the whalifiku, which is there's only 7 clans.
Yep.
And so I now carry 4. So it's the Misa, Lupe Matasila, Nanai, and Whalava'au. Right. And so whenever people ask, well, why are you doing that? Because, I'm trying to unite all the clans and hopefully get the 3rd dragon and then be able to. be able to get the White Walkers and destroy them.
Bring all 7 kingdoms together,
and then be able to go beyond the North Wall. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah. So coming back to that. So that's where Mum and Mum's from. So obviously Dad was still alive at the time, and he was really, really annoyed. He goes, vinga, vinga, all this time you're telling you.
So you're getting 4 of the 7 from there. But, you planning to take a trip on the boat, buddy?
And he was saying, I asked you all these years. I keep telling you. I said, well, Dad, and this is interesting, right? I said to Dad, yeah, but Dad, if I make tina, if I make tina, so, Grandma was the one behind this. And Dad's like, how do you know? Like that, is it? So, yeah. Mum and Dad moved over here in 1974, and I was still young at the time. But it's often, they used to share a really emotional story because obviously in our culture, when your parents are still around, your job is to kausi, to look after them and care for them right through it. And that's what I love about Samoa is that, there'll never be rest homes in Samoa. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we look after our people right through from beginning to end. And so, but my parents did something which you seldom hear, where they, and I don't know, maybe other parents have done this for their children, but our parents went against that, and, they'd often tell us, whenever we'd get into trouble, they'd remind us how, our grandparents would stand on the bye-bye, on the white rock outside the house and specifically say, do you know what I mean? You're leaving and you haven't finished your job. But my parents would just, my mum would call back because it's her parents, because my father's parents had passed. My father's mum was still around, but my mum's parents, they were Whaiwheau in that village where I was born in Sangafili.
You were born in?
I was born in Sangafili. I don't know if you know where Sangafili is, because most people when they're driving past Faleolo, they look at Faleolo.
Yeah.
Sangafili's on that side.
On the other side of the road?
There's a piece of wood there that says Sangafili that's stuck to a tree.
It must be after the dairy and it kind of fell off the tree or something.
So that's where, Tama and Tina were, serving in the Ifakasa church there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so then, Mum and Dad would often tell us, and Mum would just reply back that they were leaving, to give us a future, to give us the opportunity that we couldn't get in Samoa.
Yeah.
And so whenever, obviously, coming back to what I was saying before, whenever we'd make mistakes, they'd remind us of that. Your grandparents would stand in the rock, and you come and you get suspended. I was like, wow, this is like major guilt trip. But in all seriousness, it was pretty. It was a pretty bold move from my parents from their end, and I'm forever grateful for that. Because I think a lot of the things that myself and my siblings, what we've been able to achieve, has always been off the back of. The decisions that they made to bring us into this place, to bring us to New Zealand, to Aotearoa, and allow us to do the things that we are doing now. So, yeah, that was a big move, I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of stories very similar to that.
Yeah, especially making that move, and like you were saying that you go see until the end. Yeah. Was it a big deal when you made your decision to move the family to Manila, Malaysia, or did you know it was for a season kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you're talking to, right? Like when I was talking to sell it to my wife, it was 2 years. when she heard me selling it to my parents, I was saying it was 3 years. So we're in the car and she goes, "Is it 2 or 3?" Right? Because
your contract says 5.
Because I'm not clear on what we're doing right now. No, I just said, look, it's 2 years, but I really want to make a go of it. So it'd be great if we can do it for 3. But let's see how it goes. 9 years later, I'm like, and then, Linda wants to, she's like, "Babe, we need to go home." And, it sort of it coincided with my father passing. And so Dad passed away in December 2017, was then buried January 2018, and then we moved back. Well, Linda and the kids moved back July 2018, and I was back and forth.
Yeah.
And then I finished up with Microsoft in the Philippines in September 2018, and then
just recently.
Yeah, so then came back.
Sorry to jump back, but you said so funny. Was that so? You came back specifically after your grandma passed to do that?
Yeah. So then it's tough coordinating when you're coming in from Asia, right? Because you have to fly into. So there's no direct flight out of where we were to Auckland. So we had to go by Sydney to here, and then here to Samoa. And so it's and unfortunately it's one of those things where you miss a flight, everything else sort of
just
cascades, right? Yeah. So we landed in. We were due to. There was a major issue in Manila at the time because the agency that because I was with the company organizes all of your travel and all the rest of it, right? Even your personal travel, they get an agency to help you with your clearance, and all the rest of it, and they didn't do it. And so we're standing there, myself, Linda, and our 4 children, and we're like, what? And so then we get pushed into the room, into this interrogation room. And I'm like, I think I can take all of you guys. Those ones. So like sizing people up, like going, I think I can do that. And I was just like livid. And then I got on the phone, and I remember talking to the agency, and I said, "You told us." So anyway, what happened was we ended up going home, and then we caught a different flight. So we'd already paid for these flights, but then we had to catch a different flight to come back. And so instead of being here for what was meant being in Auckland for a couple of nights, allow the kids to reset, in time zones, and then fly to Samoa, we literally landed that afternoon. Late in the day on one day, and then the next morning we were on another flight, up to Samoa. So it was like, cool, doing those ones. But then I was like going, it's okay. I mean, the most important part was that we were able to arrive safely in all the different destinations we had to take. So then when we got there, we went through the whole process of actually meeting with the village and the village elders. The difference was my mum's brother was he was the coordinator for all the safais.
Okay, yeah.
So he said, because it was myself and brothers, so there's five boys, right? And so he said, just the eldest had to come. My eldest brother, Kuila Epa or Kofi Lau, so he went and he did all the coordinating with Uncle whilst we went and hung out at the beach, just waiting for when we get called up. But Linda and I took the opportunity to jump on a plane and fly over to Kukuila, to Pango, to see her family, because her family's over there. And it was nice. It was nice. But yeah, that's what happened around the South East. Yeah.
So when your parents made that move here, did they come straight to? Were they like every other family, straight into Central, or? Straight into Brown Greyland, at the time. We lived on 1 Dryden Street.
And when we moved there, my dad's sister had been in New Zealand since 1968, I want to say.
Okay.
And I'd love to do a story on her one day because she was a flight sergeant in the Royal New Zealand Air Force.
Oh, wow.
I know, go figure, right? Samoan lady.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say they're from the Samoan. No,
she was a sergeant. And so, used to be so proud of her. You'd see her get up and, meticulously set out, and then she'd go, often, I think she was based in Whenuapai.
Yeah.
And so, and it's funny, when we were in Manila, we met this girl, half Samoan, her father's Palangi and her mum's Samoan. And then her grandma found out about me, and she goes, why do you want to come? It's Tovia. And goes, but you know how Samoan elders are, they don't care about your first name, they want to know your last name. It's like, no. And then they said, Vailua. And she goes, Vailua. And so apparently my auntie, when she was based down in Blenheim in the Air Force base down there, she got her husband a job in the Air Force kitchen. And then she organized for people to come and help them to roof their house because, they were Samoan, they couldn't speak very much English. Yeah. And so my auntie and they were like just talking about, how they knew Auntie Sa and all the things that I was like, oh, wow, it's crazy.
Right.
And so, I think when we moved over there, going back to your question before, when we moved to the Philippines, I think, we felt like, number one, we didn't know where the Philippines was.
Yeah.
Honestly. And it was just, but we're believers. And so, faith plays such a big role in who we are as people. And so I think culturally that's what sustains us as, across the Pacific. It's just the way it is. And so we felt that there was a tugging on us to make that move. And whilst it seemed on the outset that it was about work, we felt like there was a little bit more to that. And, in hindsight, we look back on all the things that we were able to achieve and also the experience that our children had. Our two youngest were born there. It's, wouldn't change it for the world. It's crazy.
So I guess before we get into that, getting into Microsoft. So I remember, from varsity, you were there. I was like, so there's this guy. The only thing I remember, this guy is giving me a haircut in one of the bathrooms. Oh, thanks for the thing, man.
I keep telling my kids, I remember I said to one of my kids, I said, I used to work on radio, right? And they're like, yeah, whatever. And I said, no, I'm arguing with a 9-year-old trying to justify myself. And I said, no, honestly. And they said, yeah. And then I said, I'll bet you $100, right? And then they go, okay. And then they went and asked their mum and said, Mum, did Dad work on radio? And Mum goes, yeah. What? So there are all these, and then I tell people how I used to cut hair, and and they're like, whatever. It's like, far out. What has this guy been doing with his life? So, yeah. Sorry, I'll let you finish your question.
No. Since you brought up the radio thing, how did you get into that gig? I remember you being at varsity and then just disappearing. I was like, where's this guy? And I think Bob brought it up. It wasn't until I started listening.
Right, and the only reason why I took the job, hand on heart, was because I thought I'd get a girl. I thought
love songs to midnight.
I know. I was like, love songs to midnight. This, if I've never had a girlfriend before, this is it. If I can't make this happen, something's wrong. And fair to say, I didn't get anything. I was like 0. And I don't know, because Bob took over me, right?
Yeah.
So I'll have to check in with Bob and find out if he had more luck than I did. All I got, bro, whenever I used to get onto campus was people, hey, can I request a song? I was like, Bloody hell. What do you think this is? Yeah, call up like everyone else and request your song. Don't tell me. I'm not taking lists of your songs to play. But how I got onto that was, and I'll be honest, bro, I really didn't want the job. But I don't know if you remember Lance. So Lance, right? So Lance was before me.
Yeah.
So I was he was the mega star, you know, and I was the mini star. You know, I'm not bitter about it even now, but you know, it sounds like it. But
shadowed by Lance.
But Lance was going down to police college, and so he spoke to Peter Sinclair, right? And he spoke to Peter, and he said to Peter, "Hey." Peter goes to him because Peter had already said to him, part of your role is to replace yourself, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's not my job to go and find someone to take your place. And so Lance is like going, oh my gosh, who am I going to get to cover? And so he thought of a couple of people, and he thought of Tovia. You know Tovia,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
He thought, I don't know what it was that why he didn't. I think he knew Tovia would abuse his position and start making dedications to girls, even the girls who didn't know, bring out his list of all these.
Anyone's wondering.
Bring out a whole list of girls that he liked and goes, I'd like a dedication.
Oh, we've got a request here from...
I was like, so I think maybe that's why Lance didn't put him on. But then Lance came and spoke to me, and he said, hey, I spoke to Peter and I gave him the two names, and he said either one is fine with him. You know, and so then he came and spoke to me, and I said, oh, you know what? And the reason why I didn't take it was not because I didn't like Peter I loved my Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that's when, so 7:15, you're there setting up, and then you finish at 12, and then you've got to wait for everything to click over, and then, to go into the automated program, and then you go up. But who's hanging out after 12?
Oh, and so everyone else finishes, but you've got to stick around.
Yeah, you've got to stick around. And so, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're like, man, But, long story short, I ended up taking the job, and I just, I thought, okay. And, it's crazy because I worked there for 3 years.
Was it that long?
Yeah. I didn't get paid for the first 9 months. Right?
Are you serious?
Yeah, because, and then eventually what
was Peter doing for you, mate?
No. No, what happened was...
Let's go out for a nice meal at the
No, finance eventually caught up with me. The rest, and said, and then they put big bold writing on a post-it and stuck it onto the tax form, and said, if you do not sign this, you will forfeit all your money. Because they've been trying to pay me for 9 months.
But you hadn't sorted your tax?
I hadn't sorted out my tax form. And so then eventually I sorted, oh man, and so eventually I sorted out my tax form, and then, man, I got a massive payday. That was ridiculous. So, yeah. But yeah, so radio was a good, I think, because we did both stations, right? We did, Classic Hits 97, and then we moved over to I-98. So, but it was a really great experience, and Peter was a lovely man. Obviously, he was a polarizing kind of person, but and everyone had their stories about Peter. But I was really grateful that he used to proofread some of my university papers.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think, in retrospectively, looking back, as much as you didn't want that job, what do you think you got out of that? Like, just that understanding?
I think there were a few things, because you're the technical producer, you're the one that's actually dealing with the stress, the stress of when the ads kick in, you're dealing with sound levels, you're dealing with people calling in and then being able to make sure that they're ready and primed, making sure you're filtering out the crazies, because There'd be
That's
crazies.
right, that short time before.
There'd be crazies, and some of them, would come on, I love you, Peter. I love you, Peter. I was like, and Peter would be like, I was like, no, let them talk. So you learn to deal with a whole bunch of stuff, but more importantly, I think what it taught me was just, and I know this sounds really silly, right? But it was the ability for me to be, take responsibility for myself, because, I had to trade out my Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights for, and it was part of growing up, really, if I can be honest, because, in hindsight, because before that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, well, maybe not Monday, Wednesday, because Wednesday you had choir practice, but Friday night was like, you had to turn up to church or choir practice.
Oh, I can miss that.
But Friday night, that's when everyone goes to the movies, everyone, you had to give some of that. I did have some.
I wanted to work radio Monday, Wednesday, and go Friday with someone.
That's what I'm talking about. And so, but there were the faithful friends who would wait for you until midnight, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Nathan Nate would come pick me up after midnight, and then we'd go grab some chips and go eat out on the wharf before the fancy Wynyard quarter was built out. We used to hang out there, so that was pretty cool. Yeah. So I think that's it. Yeah.
So what did you actually study at varsity?
You mean the first time or the second time? You mean the first time I got kicked out or the second time? So the first time I came in and I was studying to be an English major because I loved, obviously I love writing, right? And that's the only reason why I write a lot of articles is because it's sort of like a creative outlet for me.
So you'd already done it from like college, younger as well? Or?
Yeah, well, I liked, being, just playing with words and things like that. And I did a lot of poetry as well. Long before spoken.
For the brothers, was it?
It's funny, man, because then someone turned around and called it spoken word, and I'm like, what?
Oh,
that was it. But, that was just stuff that I liked doing because, obviously because it wasn't cool. You don't really talk about it or anything like that. It's like, so what are you going to do? Well, I'm not going to tell people I'm going to go and write some poetry. I was like, hell no. So people were like, oh, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm just going to go hang out and, and watch the NRL. And I was like, but really? It's like, oh, yeah, hitherto, wherefore. It's like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so I came in, I was doing, things like phonetics and phonology, Chaucer, Shakespeare, all of that stuff because I was really keen. So I came in my first year in term one, I was averaging, I think, around 95, 96%. Like I was killing it.
Yeah.
By the end of that year, I was struggling to get 45, which is the pass mark. But man, I was really good at basketball.
I thought you were going to talk about stacking all those plates when you used to come down.
Dude, that's you and Roger. That's you and Roger. No. But I sort of lost myself because I came into varsity when I was, I think, because when I was going through school, I skipped a year. So I was always the youngest in class. Mm. And so, I came out of... I came into varsity and
your mum put that fire in you with the grandma story.
No, man.
Go and made a pie every day at school. Okay.
Yeah. But I remember I went to my orientation at university and I was 16, right?
Oh, sure.
So, and you have to think about it because I hadn't wagged a single day of school in my entire life.
Wow, so you just come out as fresh kid.
I mean, I want to qualify that. Where Avondale College was, respect. Where Avondale College was, my uncle lived here on the boundary. My auntie lived here on the boundary.
Oh, so you're at school.
So there was nowhere you could go without your ankle bracelet going. like, number 6 is on the run. It was like, so I never, I never veered down that path, or I attended every single day of school. And so when I got to varsity, I was like, hey,
you don't have to turn up on time.
Dude, I remember I was sitting there in my, and I don't know, no one knows why I took social anthropology, 03.101, but I took it. And then I remember sitting there and the lecturer stands up, first class, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, man. And I'm like, man, I'm going to nail this. And he goes, I do not care if you turn up to class. I will not come looking for you. You have to turn up to a minimum of tutorials. But other than that, your destiny is in your own hands. That's what he said. I was like, what a strange way to start a year. But then sort of going into the end of term 1, I was like, he's not going to chase me. I have to turn up to a minimum of tutorials. I'm good, right? And so that's where I started mastering in St. James movie theaters, and working on, my applied.
I thought you were working there with Mike at the time. I didn't realize you were just visiting.
I was just visiting, hanging out with Mike and sort of, hey, can I get a free popcorn? And, working on my plyometrics to see if I can improve my basketball game. And so I think that steady decline from what was meant to be real. But I come back to the point that I was, I'd gone from a place where I thought I was turning up to school because I loved school. And I did love school. But I realized then if I was given half a chance to escape from that, I would.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing when I got to university, where, I was still too young. I was too young to be there. And
16, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I, by the time I got there, I was 17, and I was like going, people were like going, so what are you doing with yourself? But I was the first in my family to ever get to university. Yeah. So, my parents would talk about how, the people at church would be like, that kid's going somewhere, Where it is, I have no idea, but he's going somewhere. I was like,
he's going to Tonga.
I know. And then you get to the point where he gets, where I'm one of the few Samoans that would ever admit, or one of the few people who would ever admit to being kicked out of university, because I got that letter of exclusion.
So you actually got told you can't come back?
Yeah. So I got a letter and it said, we strongly suggest you review your options. That given your results, I had paid, sat 14 papers and only passed 2.
Sure.
And so then they said, we strongly recommend that you, assess your options, and then if you do decide to come back, we'll then review it and we'll let you come back under probation. So that year was a tough year for me because I came away and, again, it was less about the embarrassment or shame. It wasn't that. It was more the disappointment that my parents felt about the whole thing, and I felt like I'd let them down, and so that whole grandma and granddad standing in front of the house really sort of found a place in me, and from that point on, I just decided, I'm not going to go back down this road anymore. I just don't want to be here. And so, that was a big turning point in my life. And I remember in the end of the first year, I rapidly declined from an A, I think it was an A average student down to C minus or D plus C minus. And that summer, which was a true reflection of where I was at, in my maturity, I decided to go on the dole, just for that. Everyone else who had half a brain was going and looking for work at Student Job Search. And I was like, no, man, this is like free money. And, that wasn't good either, because my mum said, for as long as you're living under this roof, you will not be on the benefit.
Well,
right? Because my parents would never do it. And so then I thought, okay, then. So, picture that, under exclusion, looking around. I then decided to go work for a factory, but because I was so young, they could choose whatever they wanted to pay me.
Yeah.
And so they paid me $6.85.
Oh, shucks. In a factory?
Yeah, in a factory. And if I turned up late, which I always did, I was young. Yeah. So then they dropped it down to $6.15. Just to reward me for turning up late. I was like, okay. And I was on this machine.
Especially factory, that's real work.
Dude, man. And I was on this machine because the factory was called Dorlon. And these guys were making the jackets for the sailors, for the Whitbread around the world, yacht race. So all the yachties would buy these jackets. And dude, the gear they were buying was expensive. I was like, so how the hell do you pay me $6.15?
That costs more than what I get paid an hour.
I'm not making the connection. And so then what happened was I felt, I was sitting there, I felt like, and I know this sounds really dumb, but I felt like I was cheating someone out of a job by sitting there. I felt like I was created or designed to do something better or something greater than sitting there. Because there I was sitting at this machine, sealing the seams to make them waterproof by putting a tape over it. And then it was shooting this, I think it's like 160 degree air onto it. Right, so it's hot, and my fingers are getting burnt, and I'm like $6.15, $6.15. Gotta earn my dollars. I'm like, what are you doing? So then I was like, what's going on? So in the end, I left there, and then I realized right there and then that this doesn't work, and I went through a turning point in my life. It was tough. There were friends of mine at the time who went through, they didn't go through, they suffered from depression, and we couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. Friends of ours, we couldn't see it. And, they unfortunately took their own lives. And so that all of that sort of made 1990, whatever it was, a really, really tough year. And so then I found a place where I could actually start to, think about, what am I actually going to do with my life rather than sort of just, kikimata down the street and, do something that's meaningful. And so I went back, and this time I decided that I wanted to influence the future leaders, and I wanted to be a teacher. And so then I wanted to major in education. So the second time I went back, and, it's funny, in the first year, I passed more papers than I did in the first 2 years. I was like, no, the first half of that year, not even the full year, the first half of that year, I passed more papers than I did in the first 2 years I was there. And I felt like that was a sign that I had grown up. I had matured, and then, I went through, I started paying more attention to, what it meant to be a learner. And that's where I met you guys. You guys were then starting into school and stuff, at varsity, and you guys came on board, and so that was cool. Seeing the young guys come through, but I realized there and then that I think that was the point where I realized I wanted to do something that was going to have an impact on, not just on myself or my family, but on the wider community and stuff. So,
And so I remember back at Varsity, I guess you were only maybe a couple of years ahead, but I saw you already taking up that kind of leadership role in a lot of what I saw. So and I just felt like you're koinga because you were always in the leading kind of things. I was like, Charlie, how long has this guy been at university?
What a professional student guy, man. I was
So I guess teaching, but then what happened at the end of teaching to get to Microsoft?
Because then I remember, the guys who didn't get kicked out of university and did do the teaching and got ahead of me, then came back and said, don't do it. Don't do it, mate.
Okay.
Don't do it. It's like, that whole narrative of let's influence the future.
Future's not good. The future threw something at me today.
They said they don't deserve the future. I was like, can I change my major, please? So, but I still went through with it, and but I realized then that I didn't want to, that maybe, it was it was probably a good decision not to pursue the teaching profession, because, you have to be passionate. I serve on the board of my daughter's school, Epsom Girls Grammar, and I take my hat off to the teachers, because you have to, that's not a get paid job.
Yeah.
That's a passion vocation. Do you know what I mean? And so I have the utmost respect for teachers, not just at that school, but all teachers who, wake up every morning and they know that the amount of impact and influence that they have on the future generations.
And I can't understand the responsibility these people take on, especially when teachers that have their own kids. I'm like, why do you do it?
Dude, it is crazy. And I'm like, oh man, but again, and I self-selected to some degree, and I realized that, if I can't do it with the amount of passion and just focus that it deserves, then I'm not going to do it. So I then looked at, my father and his, our family has always been on more the law enforcement side.
Okay.
Yeah. So dad was a policeman, brothers were policemen, and so I remember when my brother was fifth form, and I was still young, and he had opened up to my dad and said, I want to be a policeman. And my dad, lost it.
Oh.
My dad got really angry, and he was like, no.
Oh.
No one in this house is going to become a policeman. And, I remember sitting with my brother, and I said, they can't tell us what to do. We'll do whatever, this little moipi. And my brother looks at me and goes, don't ever talk like that about our dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hard dude,
that's brothers.
Yeah. He goes, don't ever talk like that about our dad. I said, I was just trying to support you, buddy. Why are you trying to turn on me like this, man? And so,
all brothers? You got no sisters?
One sister.
Yeah,
one sister. She is the queen.
Yeah.
Right? Second eldest, far out. She couldn't have picked a better position in the ranking, man. She's got an older brother that protects her, and then she's got all these other brothers that she can control. I was like, what?
And you guys were always tight growing up?
I was tight.
Everything together, yeah.
Tight. And, and I don't think that's necessarily about us. It was more about our parents. And our parents, our parents wouldn't let us have friends.
Yeah, and so that was, you got enough here for your friends.
We did not have all these children, so you go have friends with someone else, And what I found really strange, every other kid was a street kid.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to hang out with those street kids. It's like, they're not street kids. They're just like us. No, they're street kids, right? They're all street kids. It's like, oh my gosh, if their parents heard you calling their kids street kids, it'll be all on, So I was like, man. So anyway, I think my brother went and told dad, and dad said no.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad saying, and JT will probably attest to this, right? John, and my dad just said, it's not a job where you can take the uniform off and you're not a policeman anymore. It's once you're in, and you never ever get out, right? Until you decide it's not you anymore.
That's so true. Yeah.
And he said, when you're driving past and you see something wrong, you can't say, I'm not on the clock.
Yeah.
You stop the car, you get out, you get involved.
Yeah.
Right? And he said, I don't want that for you because, this is not what I had planned for you guys. And so my brother went and sat the police test. I still remember him telling us the story. He's now been in the police force for 32, going on 33 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, and a lot of he does so much for Pacifica in the police force. he started the all the songai Mikis and created that. So all the boys know him, and he told us the story of what happened when he went to do the police test.
Yeah.
And he came back, and everyone's in their running gear because you have to do the run, 2.4K run and all the rest. And then he came back, and then they were all getting back into their work gear, and he was putting his school uniform on.
Yeah.
Because that's how much he wanted to do it.
Sure.
So he put his school uniform on. They were all looking at him like, "What?
Wait, this kid just ran in front of me."
I was like, what is this kid doing? And so then my brother joined the force, and
like from that young age, like what, 17 or something?
So he I think you had to be 18, so he went in. He had to wait, but he could do his test, and then he had to wait. So he went and worked in the I think in the district court while he was waiting his time for intake.
Shucks.
And so then he eventually went down, and the rest is history. I came out of university, and I thought, what could I do now that I've chosen a profession that I don't want to do anymore? And there were so many criteria that I had to meet. I also had to make sure that it passed that's a respectful, that's a respectable vocation, right? Mm. From the church people.
Oh, yeah. So, especially after you went to university.
It was like, something good's going to happen with that guy. And so then I decided I was going to join the police force. Right? Yeah. And so I went through all the I went through all the tests and stuff, and I was getting ready for the, I remember it was February, and I was waiting for the intake in September. But then July that year, I got offered a management role with Telecom, Telecom New Zealand, and I was working in their prepaid division. So then I started off managing. I had a team of 11, but it was, these were all call center operators.
Yeah.
Dude, it was like, I was managing these people who had been doing the job for like 35 years.
Oh, what? Okay, yeah. Just
and so I'm sitting there. I was like, oh, okay, look, I listened in on 10 of your calls, and I wanted to give you some feedback on how you could improve.
Excuse me?
But they were so lovely. They were so gracious, and they were like, oh, look, I understand this. You have to do this. This is your job. And I was like, oh, thanks for that, But I felt like it was a test, but it couldn't have been, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it couldn't have been anyone. But I felt like growing up the way that I was raised, or growing up the way we were raised, right? And dealing with, elders and people who are older than us. You don't come in with a, hey, listen to this. Yeah, it's not good. It was always sort of like, hey, I want to help.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anywhere near the experience that you have, and I don't think I ever will for years to come. Yeah. But I just want to figure out a way to assist or to help. And when you talk like that, and when you, not 100% of the time, but 99% of the time, you get people who are actually understanding and appreciative of the fact that you're not trying to, power trip or anything like that.
It's interesting because I think a lot of, I guess coaching and stuff that you see in these LinkedIn learning, and they try and teach this. And I guess it's similar to the cop thing, that's part of our culture. We carry it. Yeah. It's not we turn it on for work. Yeah. And I guess
and then turn it off.
Hey, who's that guy that just spoke to you? Change this guy.
What? Yeah. So, it was one of those things where I, people, my kids are often shocked when I tell them that I could have been a policeman, but Linda, my wife, girlfriend at the time, she was strongly opposed to it, and she has said, because she'd seen others who had joined the force and saw what they, how they responded to the pressure. And, and even my father told me the same thing. He said, you're not that kind of person. And so I remember when I was offered the role by our GM and said, I know that you're waiting and in a couple of months you'll get a chance to go and do what you've always dreamed of doing. But I was amazing. This lady was amazing. She goes to me, but I have a sneaky suspicion that this isn't your dream job. I think it's your dad's job. I think it's your brother's job. I don't think it's yours.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so insightful.
Was it? But I guess, is that insightful now? Because you seem like the person who, once you want something, you're going for it. It doesn't matter what someone says to you.
Yeah, I said, look, I really appreciate the offer, and just give me some time to go and have a chat with my father. And I spoke to Dad, and Dad was like straight up and down. He said, it's not for you. He said, you've got this great opportunity. Because for me, it was about being able to get some money as well, right?
Yeah.
Not while you're in college, but when you come out of college and then you get onto, that the constable's salary. That was respectable, right? But on the other hand, I was being offered this job, which was the same money. Immediately. I didn't have to graduate from police college. And so then Dad was like, there's no reason. There's no reason as to why you'd want to do this job. And then I spoke to my brother, and my brother was like, have you spoken to Dad? And I said, because I spoke to my brother before, and because I was really excited, I called him up and I said, hey, I got offered this, but I told them that I don't think I'll take it because, intake's coming, September. Yeah. And he goes, have you spoken to Dad? And I said, no. He goes, you need to talk to Dad. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, you need to talk to Dad. I was like, So then I thought, okay. So I called Dad, and then Dad told me, right? And you're right, bro. You're right. Because I was really quite upset. I felt like they were trying to sabotage my,
something that you really thought was your dream. This is my thing, like.
But in hindsight, it was just fear. Fear of people's perception that I had failed. How long at university, and then comes out and and he goes and does whatever, the way some people are, and I was afraid of that.
Just looking like, this guy's flip-flopping everywhere.
And so I thought, but people respect police officers. And so I thought, well, Dad's done it, brother's done it, so why shouldn't I do it as well? But I look back on it now and it's like, man, that would have been one massive mistake.
Such a loss to where you are now, and I guess the work you're doing.
So and I'm grateful to my father, I'm grateful to my brother, because it's funny, life repeats itself. I think I might be misusing this term, but the term of midrash in Jewish terms, where it sort of comes around again and repeats. And it's funny that my father and my brother would be exactly the same people that would have a similar conversation with me, literally, 15, 20 years later, about, my brother would say, did you speak to Dad? I was like, about what? It was like, and it was all about getting my my cacao done. And again, another one of those logistical missions where we had to fly in and coordinate with the kufunga flying in from Sydney. Our solo was flying in from Melbourne, and we were flying in from Manila to get my cacao and Linda's malu done. And so we landed on Tuesday, expecting to start on Thursday, but they were stuck on a job in Sydney, and so that delayed everything. And then it was like going, oh my God.
So the timing game again.
Dude, I was like going, oh man, and then I started, funny, I said, I don't think any Filipinos would question as to why only one leg was there.
It's our culture.
It's just our culture, just have one leg, fully tattooed and looking really swollen. It was like, we went through it, and I remember my father, sitting down with me and just talking to me about what it meant, and explaining to me the reality of being a songai miki, because there were so many misconceptions out there that were talking about, we're warriors and all of this. Mm-hmm. And Dad was saying, well, this is, like he asked me the question, who do your eyes belong to? I was like, you? Jesus? Samoa? It's like, far out, start off here. It's like, can you kick him out?
Give me multi-choice or something, man.
I was like, B. It's all C's this year. If you select C, you'll pass. Far out, that sounds like my social anthropology exam. But what happened was, and then Dad explained to me that it was, your markings belong, your kakao, your tattoo belongs to your community. No one ever says that. Do you know what I mean? No one ever says that. Everyone says, it's for this, it's a... But Dad sort of hit the nail on the head, and he said, no, it belongs to the people that you're around.
And when I read that, it was amazing, because that was the first time I've ever heard it. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes the most sense of anything I've ever heard.
I was like, it's a navigation
this is the only thing that actually makes sense.
And so he translated, the kamu mulongu kakailo pau, right? Tattoo your mouth first. And what he meant was, it's not about the way you speak. It's about the way you walk. Mm-hmm. It's about the way you serve. It's about, learn that first. Yeah. Learn to put other people before you. Learn to not speak over people. Learn to serve quietly. Learn to, when people come to your house, you don't ask whether they want a cup of tea. The jug's already boiling, and whether they drink it or not, that's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job is just to make it happen. And, it was all of that. And he said, do that first. Then you get your tattoo.
Yeah.
But, people then go away and say, you need to learn how to, you need to learn all the whaalupingas of whaasalele anga right through to Polo, right through to Mongongo, and then come back and then go to... I was like... And he said, no. He said, what use will that be to the Filipinos the way you live? Yeah. You go and you tell them you're Whalpenga for Whalakai, the village that you went and got a title from, even though I was telling you to go get a title from far out, was still better. And he said, it doesn't matter to them. What will matter is when they're in trouble, are you going to stand up and help them out? Or are you just going to wait for someone else and talk about how those markings mean you're a warrior? And I just thought, man. And so I make it a point to share with other guys who are considering the journey, right? To never be afraid. Never be afraid of the fact that you may feel like you can't speak the words. That you look across and you see, like Tanoai. Man, the amazing work that him and his wife and his family are doing. Yeah. Outstanding.
Well, and that's the thing, like, we haven't even spoken to that guy, but I mean, just that heart of giving back and, making it make sense. It's like, this is what we need. This is real education. I think in English, that's why this makes sense.
Yeah, and my wife, Linda did, I think, Vasenga Mumu and Vasenga Lua, right?
Wow, okay.
And she wanted to do it, not so that she could, be eloquent and because she's her mum's Samoan, but she wanted to understand because she's an artist. So she wanted to understand the deeper meaning of. She just didn't want to paint a pua and say, this is a traditional flower or a kewila or anything like that. She wanted to understand, how do we exist with each other? How does our culture wrap around us? And what does the culture do to help us to differentiate about our identity as people from the Pacifica versus people that have become our neighbors in this new environment, right? And so I really appreciated her, doing that, because then she would come and she'd talk to me about the stuff that she'd learned.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, yeah. And she even raised, Tanuai then also raised with her, when people come to your house, he said the same thing. When people come to your house, you don't ask, you just do.
Yeah.
You get the masi and you put the paka and the jam on it,
You find something in the cupboard.
and you get it out there, man. And I was like, oh, man, and so I really, really love and appreciate it. So, but, my dad was very clear on that. Mm-hmm. He said, our culture isn't the words, our culture is our actions.
Yeah.
And what we do, that's what defines, the whole phrase of winga tau sa'afia. It doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter how far you've gone, how high you've gone. When you come in, let people see that, the lowly of heart and the fact that, and it's not false humility or anything like that.
That's the thing, yeah.
It's understanding who you are and understanding that people are important and being able to elevate people to a place where, maybe they don't feel elevated or they don't feel important. My job is to help you feel important and feel, like you mean something, or at least, in our interaction, may you leave knowing that you meant something to me, after that. Do you know what I mean? So it was, and I remember it was the last time I caught up with my dad before he passed away, and so I'm sitting there and, he's got his hands on the side of my face, and he's talking to me and he's speaking life into me.
What, while you were getting cut?
No, after, because I'm about 4 hours away from getting on a plane to fly back to Manila.
Yeah.
And so then he's talking to me and he's like, just explaining to me, when you stand like this. When you sit like this. When you walk like this. So that when people see you, they won't have to ask who you are. Yeah. They'll know that, that they'll see, when things go wrong, you don't wait for people to ask. You step forward because your knees are black.
Yeah.
Your knees are black for a reason, so that when you kneel down, you're there to work. And I was just like, oh, man. So this has nothing to do with me. I was like, so I wish someone had told me this before.
It's a lot of pain and a lot of work to carry if I knew.
Far out. So I really can't talk about how great my tattoo is because it's got nothing to do with me. So it's really good. I feel like no one bothered to tell me this before.
Had you had, I guess, leading up to make such a huge decision, had you had conversations with Dad about like, oh, hey, I'm thinking of getting my songa miki, or
yeah, we'd spoken to him, and unfortunately, well, Dad was really excited, so he had gone and looked for a kufunga and all this, so he found this kufunga, and the kufunga is really, really good. I don't want to name him because whilst he's really good, when we looked at his...
What is that? Like, a lot of guys like, oh, who got you? So I didn't get it because I haven't got one and I haven't done that, but I always... Who got you? And then it's this awkward wait. Like, oh, wait, if I say the name, is it going to...
So if I say the wrong name, is it going to elevate? And so I was like going, So, I'm really grateful to my kufunga. His name's Kasala Sangele. And he was, my dad sat in the first session and sat in the last session. Oh. And my dad said, in some, amuia oe se lo kufunga ka alofa, which means, you're blessed because your tufunga cares about you, right? And he's watching you and making sure that when he feels like he's reading you, so that when he feels like you've had a little bit, koma, take a break.
Okay,
and so I thought, wow, that's really cool, right? And so, I don't know how he ranks, but for me, I felt like he was the right guy for us.
Yeah.
And, I believe that all things happen for a reason, and he was the right guy that came at the right time for both Linda and I to get it done. And, when we had completed it, it was quite funny because Linda said to them, "You guys have to finish tomorrow night." She was like straight up and down. She said that guy has to be on a plane in the next 36 hours, and so you can't tattoo him, tomorrow because we're flying out Saturday morning. And so she literally told these guys, "You have to finish on Thursday."
Oh shit!
And so then,
how much had your back your legs were done?
I was like, "Oh yeah, easy for you to say, man. I'm the one that said, come on." So, bro, that last day was 11 hours. Yeah, 11 hours, and then we went into the samanga. But man, 11 hours. And I remember after, all the adrenaline's gone, and then, I had a second shower to wash all the lenga off, the yellow off, and I literally, I was about to pass out. Unfortunately, Linda was there, and so she sort of pushed me against the wall. She was like, "Oh, don't catch me." I was like, she just pushed me against the wall so that I could catch myself and hold myself up. But I was like, because blood
was this at home after?
At home. So you lose a lot of blood, and you'd gone through, and the reality was
you're not a very big guy, so it takes a toll.
I was just like, I was like going, are we almost finished? Are we finished? Are we there yet? And then for anyone who ever considers getting it, I think, part of the kaalofa was the fact that he didn't do the whaapefu until right at the end.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, and the whaapefu is the the inside of inside of your butt cheeks, right? And that goes deep. That goes deep. And I remember the solo who's doing it, and we were. The kufunga was tapping away, and I remember, like I was just struggling to relax, and then the solo, bless him, he goes, wait, he said, we don't need any Arnold here, all we need is Beyonce, let it jiggle. Right, and that was the tone of the sessions. Yeah, was this funny guy, Gordon, just made us laugh all the time, right? But he helped us to, because what people don't realize, there are some people who go through the process and they're pushing the kufunga like, oh, let's go. It's not easy. It's just not easy, and you've got this guy and he's a young guy, he's 34.
Okay. Wow.
And so he's sitting there and he's going at it, and I'm like going, man, and I didn't appreciate it until the end, and I was just like thinking, man, the way that this guy applies this art form, and does it respectfully, lovingly, and does it in a way where you come away and you don't feel like because let's face it, it's not cheap, right? Yeah. It's there's a cost to it, both physically and also financially, but it's worth every dollar.
And when I do I look at it and do the math, you look at the hours these guys put in, and just concentrating for as much as you sit and get the pain for that long. These guys are concentrating, making sure every like they know that they don't. There's no rubber after that.
No, and you're absolutely right. The way that these guys work. I don't know. Like I did 7 sessions. 6 sessions were 7.5 hours, and then the last session was 11.5. Thank you to my wife, who and she was right, because we had heard stories about people who, hadn't listened and had jumped onto a plane. One guy who jumped onto the plane, and they literally had to peel him off from the seat.
Oh, just soaked through?
Yeah, and because he was sitting on the seat for so long, he stuck.
Oh.
So his back hadn't healed properly, hadn't finished healing, and so it was stuck. And so then they had to, they had to call in the medics and all the rest. And so she was worried that, because it's not a short flight going back to...
So you just had to keep getting up and...
So I kept getting up and, I put some, wipes, a pack of wipes in the overhead compartment, because when you're on a plane, it gets really cold in there, right? Yeah. And so you need as much cold as possible. And so I'd grab the overhead compartment, grab my Bepanthen, and then I'd go into the toilets and just be like, feeling sorry for myself, like, so, and then apply the Bepanthen and the antibiotic cream, and then go back and sit down again, and then sort of get up again an hour and a half later, go back to the toilet. And it was crazy. But, I look back on it and I was thinking, man, what an experience. And it was an experience that I never thought I'd do, because I kept telling my father I'd never get it. It's not me. I just won't do it. And so, Nico, Ivala, all of them, they all got it done 25 years before me.
Oh, okay, so they've had it for a long time.
Yeah,
so I saw the photo. I thought you guys all got together.
No, Nico got it done when he was 16.
Oh, what?
Yeah. But if Nico got his way, Nico would have had it done in 14. But Dad said, you're not doing it until I go through it first. Right?
Oh, yeah,
and so then, and I think my eldest brother was a bit annoyed with him, because now it felt like Dad was being forced into it. But I knew Dad wanted to get it for a long time, because his father had it as well. And so then it became a forcing function. Nico got it first, then my eldest brother got it next, and then Ivala got it, and then my other brother was flown in from Samoa undercover.
Oh, wow, right? To go get his...
Yeah, and because he was staying with our grandma, the one that forced me to come back, and they said, why, she'd always call up, where is he, what is he doing there? And I said, oh no, we come because I think there's a job here for him, but no one wanted to tell her that, he came to get his kakao done. And so when she found out, but oolong ki a kongo and all this, that, and the other, I was like, but eventually he went back, but it was good, it was good for them to be able to get that stuff done. And I think, if I think about who I am now and the shifts and the changes that I've gone through, I think a lot of this was a culmination of just, already walking in that, excuse me, already walking in that, in that direction, in the way that I was already operating, both in a personal but also in a professional sense.
And it's almost your father's word kind of just sealed everything. Like,
absolutely.
Okay, I'm in the right place.
And but it was good.
So, what did change? You never wanted to get it. It wasn't part of you. So, was it after you had yourself fired? Did something spark from there, or just?
I think, to be honest, bro, it was how do I put this? It was I did it at the risk of wanting to do it after my father had passed away. So I was worried that,
Wait, and then, man, I should have.
Yeah, and then, or even worse, you go and get it done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I thought, if I'm going to get it done, I might as well get it done while he's still here, so at least he can see it.
Yeah.
So that photo that you see of me and, the 5 boys and Dad, such a special photo because it's generations, and all of those boys were all done by Suluape, who passed away, right? And so when I got done by Kasala, I was trying to explain to Kasala that our family has been looking for a new kufunga for a long time. Excuse me. But
so was that part of Dad finding a young kufunga for your boys, maybe?
Yeah, well, the kufunga that Dad found, we didn't end up going with him.
Oh.
Because when we looked at, I was a little bit sensitive because he was a relative as well.
Oh, okay.
So I had to sort of have an upfront conversation with my dad and said, Dad, if you don't mind, because his kakaos were really good, but his malus weren't what we were looking for. And I didn't want to have mine done by one and and Linda
have to go somewhere else to get on
else.
this model. Yeah.
And so then we found this guy, and he was liked, and that's what I really liked. He was and he got his done when he was 13.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so, and he got it old school, got it done with kerosene. The burn the kerosene and the black.
And the black.
Yeah, and then you turn that into the ink.
Prison styles. My nephew just told me about that.
Yeah, well, that's, we could trust that he had been there, done that. Yeah. And so, but for me, what changed was exactly the fact that I didn't want to wake up one day and say, oh, I want to go get a cacao now.
Yeah.
I'm ready. And Dad's not around. And so he was so proud, okay, now it's complete because all the brothers have been done.
And I guess hearing those words at the end, lucky you got it before he went, just having those words.
But, those were words that were, those were words that were only set aside for my brothers who had gone through it.
Mm.
I had no idea about it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because I wasn't part of that. And so that's why I talk about, in my article, not Samoan enough.
Mm.
People talk about, I'm not Samoan enough because I don't speak Samoan. I'm like at a totally different level, man. I'm not Samoan enough because my knees aren't black, and, you could speak Samoan, heck, I probably did more fola others than those guys, and they have cacaos, right? But I felt like I was in that journey where I wasn't Samoan enough because everyone would look. And I remember I shared that funny story where we're at Salofa's wedding and we get up and we go dance.
Right, yeah.
And they pull up, all the,
so
pull up, pull up, and then everyone's like, yeah,
pull up to the
and
German.
I know. And then they pull up. I was like, oh, you're that one. It's like, oh.
Must be another T-shirt. It looks like skin. What's going on?
This guy, and so I talk about that concept of the only, right? And I felt like the only, because I was different, or, because I didn't, look the same, I didn't talk the same. Yeah. And then we move into a country where, again, we're the only because we're taller than people, and you know what I mean? And so, there was a lot of getting comfortable with that. And I think when all of this sort of, came to a head and we were able to go through that process, there was a lot of, I don't know, maybe it was that, I don't think healing is the right word because I don't think there was any healing required. I think there was a lot of, I'm home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Just complete,
I'm home. And that's why, in that final phrase in that article, I talk about, I use that term because I felt it. It was like, by the way, welcome home.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people out there, whether it's the Pacifica diaspora or, I had people reaching out to me who were Irish, talking to me about how, their identity, that they it resonated well with them, the fact that people raise and lower the bar of acceptance depending on how they feel, right? And I jokingly talk about, about Dwayne Johnson. Right, Dwayne's Samoa is not that great.
Yeah,
right, and even he will often joke about it. His mum's Samoa is amazing, but Dwayne's not so much. But no one says he's not Samoan.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's quick to claim him, and I think we have to be a lot fairer to, our, and there's this whole thing around blood quantums, right, and blood quantums is this way in which you measure, like you look at someone and you say, oh, you're fair-skinned, how much, what are you? Oh, I'm this one. But you have to understand that blood quantums or those fractional definitions were designed for people who were trying to identify a group that they didn't understand. Whereas for us, we need to get to a place where we understand that whether you're quarter, 1/16th, 1/32nd, or no, you're Samoan.
Yeah. It goes back to where you carry yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, my mum's Samoan, but my dad's Kiwi. Oh, so you're Samoan.
Mm.
He said, oh yeah. I said, well, yeah, you're not half of this, half of that. You're not either or.
Yeah.
You're both,
Mm-mm.
right? And that's who you are. That's your identity. As opposed to feeling like you have to, half of me is this. No, how does that work? You're either a whole person or you're not. And so it's important, or at least this is my opinion, right? It's just my opinion, where I feel that, if you're Samoan, you're Samoan.
Yeah.
And, like what we were discussing before, it's how you carry yourself, right? I've seen some Pālangis who are more Samoan than some Samoans.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. And just that alofa and the way you carry yourself. Like, you're full, but some of your pockets and you ain't helping no one.
It's like, bro, just reach a little bit deeper and you'll be
Touch
all
your
right.
socks. So telecom. Which podcast are we on?
We've removed the tick. It's like,
So from telecom to Microsoft, was that the jump?
So I was in telecom for almost 3 years, and then I got made redundant, which was really good. Because
it's different from a letter saying don't come back.
Yeah, well, they offered me a role, but they wanted us to move down to Palmerston North, and that just wasn't on the cards for me. And so I said, "Oh, it's cool." And the company was like, if you find a job before your end date, we'll still pay you out though. So it was one of those. It was like they just, and I was really grateful because, but when people do that to you, you just want to work even harder. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so then I was leading the decommissioning project of Airedale Street.
Oh, okay. Getting everything out of there.
And moving it down to Palmerston North. And so then, I got offered a role at Datacom.
Oh, so at telecom, you're already in the technical role now from...
Yeah, so I was working in the prepaid space.
Yeah.
And, prepaid mobile was brand new. And so there weren't people, this section is technical, this section is billing.
You just did it all.
You did it all. I was like, and so you see all these guys going through, I don't know if you remember the Kyocera handsets, and you're like going through, I was like, how do you fix this? It's just crazy. And so then I moved over to Datacom, and I wasn't aware. I just applied to the role Datacom, and at the time they were looking for someone to lead the sales organization, the tally sales. Yeah. And so before that, before I left, when I was at Telecom, I was managing the 111.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, emergency services. Yeah. People talk about stress. I'm like, let me tell you about stress. When you're walking past and you hear screaming, because it's, and you're like going...
So the people in your team were taking the 111 calls?
Yeah, the 111 calls, because they're the ones that go fire, ambulance, police.
Yeah.
Right? And then so they have to wait until it's connected. And then
so they're dealing with that raw while they're trying to wait for the...
and then the services go, please stay on the line and make sure that, and so then, I'll stay on the line.
In between with those person.
Yeah. And so then they'll stay on the line for as long as the services, and then services will go, okay, you're okay to go, and then you disconnect. Sure. So then you're just watching these people and you're like, going, man, New Zealand owes you a lot because that job ain't easy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And so I was happy to get out of that, because not to run away from them. It was just happy to get away from that stress.
Yeah, I guess just, I don't know the timing. So it was probably like maybe early 2000s or something. Like, was there any thinking around... like stress management or like dealing with that kind of stuff for these people?
The stress management was downstairs in the basement where they go smoke. Right? Honestly, that was it, And then I used to see some of the ladies and that have really bad DTs, death tremble, just hands are shaking. They can't hold cups of tea and stuff. And I'm just like going, man, we were so archaic in the way that we were treating this and addressing this. And so... I moved from there and I moved over to Datacom, and at the time I wasn't aware, but we were contracting to Microsoft.
Oh, okay.
And so then I moved in, I was looking after the telesales, And then what happened was more managers were leaving, and so I was just absorbing more of their roles and their teams.
So your title stayed the same, but just more.
Bro, I wasn't absorbing their salaries. I was like, any chance of getting a pay rise here, buddy?
Oh, looks like something Tovia might know about. Just let him do it.
Come here, mate. Can you look at this? I was like, oh yeah, no problem. And so it just carried on like that. And then I remember, I remember I just was blinking at 3 a.m. at night at 3 a.m. at the ceiling, and I just thought, man, this is tough. I don't know because the stress levels were getting higher and higher and higher, and it was the first time. I don't know if you remember a virus called the blaster virus or the SARS virus, where and it was 46,000 calls, where it broke the T1 pipe for telecommunications, and the rest of that area in Grafton couldn't get their calls because all of those calls were trying to get to us.
Oh, shit.
And it was just high stress, and so I spoke to management at the time, and I said to them, hey, I have 3 things I'm looking for. I want a pay rise, I want a change in my title, and I want succession planning. And the succession planning is for your benefit, because if I go out and get hit by a bus, no one knows how to carry on, right? Yeah. And, for 6 months, every one-on-one said, where are we at with this? Where are we at with this? And I was just testing it because, dude, if there's one thing I know about Pasifika people, we're not very good at talking about money, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, this, that, and this, that, and this, that, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually 6 months later, I spoke to my wife and I said, I can't do this because, I'm getting to that point where I wish I was a sniper and I could actually pick people off from, of the management team as they drive down the driveway, because I was just getting them. Yeah. I was just getting really, really annoyed because, these people just thought that I could just absorb all of this. Mm-hmm. And so then, long story short, I said, no, I'm not doing it. So then I quit. And I went to, because at the time whenever you called up to talk to Microsoft and you were angry,
and then it came to you guys.
It came to us, and then it got escalated to the senior engineers or the senior sales reps, and then it got escalated to their leads, and if they couldn't handle it, then it came to me, and I was everything.
Yeah.
They want a product manager, I'm the product manager.
Oh, okay. So
you want a marketing manager, I'm the marketing. I was also schizophrenic. So I didn't know who I was sometimes because I was trying to be, I was trying to not be deflective, but find a way to help these people, right? And so I then decided I was done, and I wanted to go and at the same time I started my MBA.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then Microsoft found out, and they called me up, and I was good friends with the marketing director at the time. He said, "Hey, do you want to come and work here?" And I said, "Oh, what have you got?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't have much." And he said, "Oh, I've got an internship. It's just a marketing internship." And he said, "But if you want it, it's yours." Yeah. And I said, "Oh, okay. 2 questions." And I said, "Do I have to manage people?" Because by then I had 43 people.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I said, "Do I have to manage people?" And he goes, "No, it's an internship." Yeah. I said, "Oh, okay, cool." And I said, "Second question, is it high stress?" And he goes, "Again, it's an internship." I said, "Oh, awesome. So I'll do it." Yeah. So then, going back to our earlier conversation about being an intern, that's what I did. And so I jumped into Microsoft. I came in as an associate product manager and learned the ropes as I went through. And 10 months later, they then asked me to become a fully fledged product manager. And so I was looking after their server and tools business.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know what it is. But again, the same thing happened. People were leaving. And I was just absorbing. Give it to that guy. It's like, give it to that guy who doesn't say anything in the corner. I was like going,
give it to the intern. He seems to know a lot and just seems to say yes.
So it got to that point where, and so then I stayed in those roles, and I was, so I'd done that contracting to Microsoft for 3 years out of Datacom, and then I moved to Datacom and did, I think just over 5 years.
So the internship, you were one of the 2, like already in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow,
I came
okay.
in as an intern and then moved into a full-time role. And I was like, man, I was getting paid the equivalent of my intern salary
Yeah.
and my wife's salary combined, right?
Yeah.
Which was perfect because she was about to go on maternity leave. So you've got this young guy, no dependents yet, making some money, and I was like, oh, this is really cool,
Yeah.
right? And but then when you get all the work that goes with it, you're like going, what? And so that was a good lesson for me just to understand, when to create boundaries and when to say no, and also when to speak up and say, actually, this isn't fair. And so I did that, and then I was asked to look at, one of the guys was being moved out of New Zealand to Manila to become the new GM, the new managing director. And so he asked me would I come across as well. And I thought, I laughed.
So Microsoft was already set up there, but it was just to take over.
Microsoft was a bigger office than New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, over there. I think New Zealand at the time was 130 people. The Philippines was probably about, I don't know, maybe 200.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
wow. Yeah.
And that doesn't include the Microsoft call center, which was another 3,500. So I was like, okay. All right. Angry guy. So, so then, I went and spoke to Linda, and Linda was like, oh, yeah. So we went through that move. And went over, and it was meant to be 2 years, turned into 3, turned into 5, turned into 7. And then it was an interesting prospect because 3 years before we left, I handed in my notice.
Oh, yeah.
Not physically, but I told them 3 years from now I'm leaving. And they all laughed.
Okay. Yeah.
And then 2 years, I'm leaving in 2 years, so you guys better get your plan together. And then 1 year left, and I said, 1 year, 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And then it counted down to quarters, 3 quarters left, 2 quarters. And then a month and a half before, what they didn't know is Linda had already organized for a 40-foot container to come to our house. And then we packed everything into the house. And we took a photo of the container closing. And we didn't post that photo until 48 hours before we were on a plane to leave.
Oh, wow.
And so when I announced that I was leaving, company was like, excuse me? And I said, hey, I gave you 3 years. 3 years,
wow.
I told you that I was leaving. And so I had built some really strong relationships. I was very blessed that I had a strong relationship, and I believe I still do, with the president of Microsoft Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
And so I moved back, and I was looking to jump into a role in Microsoft New Zealand, but there was nothing senior enough in Microsoft New Zealand available at the time, because they just appointed people into roles, and they were in those roles for less than 2 years. And so I was looking, I was like, and so then I was literally given an open list of all the jobs available. To look at in Asia. But the problem was the roles that I was really interested in required me to be on a plane 3 months of a year, 3 weeks of a month.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And so, I had to respectfully decline, because I didn't come home just so that I could leave my family here and go gallivanting around Asia. As much as I love the company, I still do love the company, but I feel like that stage of my life and that chapter of my life is over, If you include it all, that's 17 years. That's your kid is born and finishes high school. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're done. And so, I was fortunate enough, and some ex-Microsoft people who I kept in close relation with found out about the fact that I was looking, and then they approached me to do the country manager role here in New Zealand for Right. And so then I jumped at that, and I thought, okay, cool. So I went and did that, and that was good. And then a year later, they asked me to do Australasia also, both Australia and New Zealand. So yeah, it's that's what I was saying. I think I'll do this role for another 2 years, and then I'll figure out what to do after that. I was like, and it's important. It's important to control and it's not. Don't do it in an arrogant way, right? Don't say, you need me. No one is indispensable. No one is irreplaceable. We're all replaceable. People will miss you. Some people create bigger dents than others, bigger craters than others, that when you leave, people sort of see the massive gap that you leave. Yeah. And some people leave a very, some people are barely even noticed when they're gone, right? And so I'm very aware and very clear on that I'm not irreplaceable. And but I also know that, like I said before, I've got something that, I feel like there's a lot to do, and hence the reason why I got involved with Pacifica in IT. Yeah. I launched, I think, a tech startup during lockdown.
What? So what did you? Yeah.
So it's based on augmented reality around AR, and what we're looking at is it's still in. We're just going through the details at the moment. In terms of, in fact, I really early this morning I had a call with there's 4 of us. One guy who's based out of Seattle, who works for AWS but used to work for Microsoft. One guy who's based in Manila who used to work for who now works for Microsoft but used to work for AWS. And then the other guy who's based in Tauranga, he is he's had a lot to do with the tech industry here, ex-Callahan Innovations. And then there's little old me, right? And so I pitched the idea to the 3 of them, and they were like, wow, yeah, it's cool. And so hopefully we'll be able to come out with something in March. But it's a global project, which is really exciting. I think it'll do a lot for Indigenous people, but I think it'll be one of those things that I'm not trying to talk it up, but I believe it will be a game changer in terms of what we're trying to in terms of what we do over the next few centuries. And
exciting.
So it's really cool. I love the guys I work with. They're amazing people. The funny thing was, it was an idea that came out of my 10-year-old, and then we started fleshing it out.
The idea came during lockdown.
Yeah. Wow. And he had sat down and he had built it out of Unity. So he had coded it out of Unity. And then we were just talking through the concept, and I said to him,
so you stole your son's idea?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like going, can I steal your idea? And he goes, well, sorry, I've already signed the paper. It's already stolen. So,
is this, so sorry, your kids, how old are they?
15. We have 3 girls, so girl, boy, girl, girl. So 15 girl, 11 boy, 10 girl, 5 girl. Yeah.
Wow. So it's your daughter, the 10-year-old?
Yeah, it was actually my son at the time. And so he came and he met with Brett, who's ex-Callahan Innovations. So, and him and I were there, and he was talking about the whole idea and how he built it. And then Brett asked him, where'd you get the idea from? He goes, from Dad. So in effect, I didn't steal the idea from him. It was Inception. I gave it to you. You create it. I'm taking the idea back. It was like, no.
So at the time when you was was it then at 10 or earlier that you realized you were smarter than you?
Probably about 4.
Probably both, because that's the average.
When it was like about 4. Well, bro, I was watching this video of him, and he's, I think he's 8. And he's talking through the design thinking from Stanford.
What?
Yeah, and he's going through all the stages. And, he's got this really cute lisp, and he's talking about it, and he's going, you go empathy, and then you ideate, and then I was like going, and so, I play it back to him, and he just giggles because it's so funny, but it's, you know, and it speaks to the fact that, you know, we should never underestimate the capability of our children. You know what I mean? I feel like our kids are really, really, they're a lot more talented than what we give them credit for.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously within the boundaries of safety and you know, encouraging them as opposed to pushing them, but encouraging them just to explore. You know, my kids were one of the less than 1% of people around the world that got to touch and play with HoloLens before it was released. Now, HoloLens is that mixed reality visor, right? And so they were looking at the Airbus 350 inside our lounge.
Over there?
Yeah, and they were walking through the cabin, you know?
Yeah.
And we were watching what they could see, you know, and the guys, you know, the guy who's now, you know, based in Seattle, because he had the preview of HoloLens, he then allowed my kids to go through it. And so my daughter got to bring the sun into our lounge and stretch it out and then be able to spin the sun, you know, all through mixed reality, right? Yeah. And then I sat them down and I said to them, why do you think I showed you guys that? And they said, oh, because it's cool. And I said, apart from that, I was like, far out, talking about surface. I was like, and then said, oh, because it's important. And I said, yeah, it is important. And I said, because I don't ever want you to think, what if you could bring the sun into your lounge and learn? What if you could point to what a solar flare is and a pop-up label comes up, solar flare? Yeah. What if you could hear 3D sound and if you turn around, the sun's still there, but it's still crackling, right? And I said, I don't want you to think that that's imaginary or that's science fiction. That's now fact. So you have to figure out, how do you build on that? Yeah. Because the platform's already designed, the platform's already created. And so now you have to think, how do I push the boundaries of that beyond that? So it's funny, they went away and they talked to their friends at school and all their friends were like, oh, you're lying. You're lying. It's not possible. You know, I was like, and it's like, you know, Dad, we hadn't told them that we had the sun and then we had the Airbus 350 and all this, and we had an engine and the engine had 3D sound, and they wouldn't believe us. Yeah. I said, it's okay.
Well, and I guess probably at the time, you know, it's not like YouTube videos where you can watch other people doing it. So it's like, that ain't real.
And so then my eldest daughter, she got me to come in and demo. So I brought it in. Wow. And the kids in her class were like, what? You know?
I don't know, Bill Gates was black.
But it was like, you know, so my children have been very, I believe, blessed in that they've had an experience that very few children had.
Just exposure,
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we were very careful to make sure that they were grounded, you know, because you're talking about kids who wake up and, you know, someone's already there to cook their food. You know, someone's there to make their bed, you know, someone's, you know, and then there's a guy who's waiting outside in the car to drive them to school, you know, and it was just that kind of life. But we made sure that they understood that that's not normal. Yeah. You know, that's normal in that country. It's not normal for us. That's not the way we live, right? Yeah. And be respectful of people, you know, and just because, you know, you've got, you know, the maid nanny culture.
Oh, so you live in maids over there, and that's just normal.
And they had to learn, you know, that, you know, we treat them, you know, they're part of us, right? And so it was really great to, you know, I remember I was leaving Microsoft and they said, what was your greatest achievement? You know, people like talk about, what about the awards you got?
Yeah,
you know,
something delivered.
And I said to them, no, my greatest achievement was when my kids formed their own foundation and they fundraised enough money to build a family a house.
Oh, what?
Yeah, to build a family a house who had been displaced in a typhoon. And this house was better than any house they'd ever had before, because before it was sort of tin on posts and, you know, surrounded. So naturally a typhoon comes and just wipes it all. So, we were working with this foundation that were building houses that were concrete block and would actually allow them to have a bathroom inside the house, which wasn't normal there, right? Heck, it's not even normal in Samoa. But, you know, and then they could have a place where they could eat inside the house and sleep inside the house, but it was all concrete block.
Yeah.
But they needed people to, you know, to sponsor a house. And so the kids then decided they went and sold all their toys, you know, and they went, and then, you know, it was amazing because then the mayor of the city, you know, one of the guys who works with the mayor came down and he videoed our kids.
Oh, doing
the night before we fly out permanently.
Oh, wow.
So it was like the cherry on top. This was the way it was going to end, was by our kids thinking, you know, and you know, being able to talk to the family who would then get the keys to their new house the next day, right? Yeah. And, you know, we'd been talking our kids through it because they wanted to go up and see the house, and we said, you know, you may never see the house in your entire lifetime. You may never meet the family. All you need to know is that you did something good. Yeah. That's all you need to know. And so then when this video opportunity came up, they were like, wow, we get to talk to them. We may never see them, but they'll see us. Yeah, yeah. And so then our daughter, who was 12 at the time, you know, and we, the guy was saying, hey, you guys can come and say, I said, no, we had nothing to do with this. That's them. Yeah. And he was like, oh, okay. So then the 12-year-old Te Wheeler gets up in front of him, and, you know, she's surrounded by her little brother and sisters, and she goes, you know, the first thing that comes out of her mouth is, thank you for the privilege to be a part of your family, you know? Yeah. And we felt like the world was in a safe place, you know, because we knew that there's a generation that's coming through that cares, that doesn't give a toss about, you know, all of the money and all the materialism. What they care about is that, you know, if I've got something and you don't, we can share. We can figure this out, right? And so that was the greatest achievement for me. You know, I was blessed when I was at Microsoft. You know, I got to, you know, I was rated in the top of top ranking employees, you know, because what Microsoft does this wonderful thing where it ranks the top employees from each office. Oh, wow. You know, and if you get it during your career at Microsoft once, that's great. Yeah. And I got it twice. You know, so it was statistically becoming, you know, and you know, and even more so because I don't think I'm that smart. Do you know what I mean? And so it was like, wow, fluke that one, high five, you know. And so, and then, you know, the company as I was leaving had nominated me for a third time around, but we had left. Oh wow! Yeah, and so, you know, I'll always be grateful. And, you know, I could have, all of those things were important because I don't ever want to look at it and say, well, you know, it wasn't much. It meant a lot because there were a lot of deserving people in the company that could have got it. And I was so privileged and so honored, but also humbled to be the person that they'd selected. But of all those things, what was important was that my kids understood that this is what life is about. Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. Yeah. I guess with your kids, like that journey and their learning around, like, I guess IT. So I want to talk about Pasi, but I guess just in the home, like, what are their aspirations? Is it like, I guess, do they talk about where they want to be in tech or anything? Are they there yet, or is it very still early for those conversations?
We start those conversations in our family really, really early. Yeah. But one of the things that we're very clear on is that you won't get a choice of whether you're in tech or not. Tech will be, you know, it's an assumed, right, reality. And I think I speak often about the fact that, you know, today we have multiple industries with subsets of technology in there, you know. But in the very near future, it's already happened where technology will be the one industry and there will be subdivisions under technology. Because technology is the only way that you can advance your industry or advance your company, right? There is no way we tried the BPO outsourcing. We tried to outsource all the call centers and stuff, but we're still paying for people, right? And people fall into annual leave, sick leave, board leave, and all the rest of it. Whereas you train an algorithm and the algorithm won't stop.
Yeah.
Good or bad, it'll still run, right? And so when you look at tech is the only enabler that at the very least will break even, at the very least. But more likely, it'll actually create an advancement in your company. And so when you get competing organizations within a particular industry, whatever development they're developing will not only advance them, but eventually it'll bleed into other competitors and advance the industry. And so therefore, you've got that technology layer that's going to supersede every industry, right? Yeah. Manufacturing, professional services, automotive, whatever it is, all of them. I mean, look at shoe manufacturing, right? And the Ansbach speed factory and how they moved away from, this whole the whole concept, design, prototype, cutting floor, manufacturing, distribution, retailing, marketing, and getting it out. That whole process is 18 months at least before the shoes actually reach you and you're wearing them, right? Ansbach Speed Factory gets that down to 1 week.
Wow.
You've just displaced 3,000 people out of Vietnam, 9,000 people out of Indonesia. And so this is what I mean by technology is not going to take any prisoners. But I think one of the things that people need to understand is that, especially when you're looking at artificial intelligence, the people who are making a mistake are the people who are looking at AI as a replacement for humans. It's wrong.
Yeah.
The power of AI comes when it's enhancing human capability. And getting that synchronization between human capability and AI, because humans have that ability to empathize. There's an argument around creativity as well, which is important. But what humans can't do is pour through, copious amounts of data and build out insights and intelligence accelerators and all the rest of it. And so you need both to come together in a harmonious way so that each are playing to their own strengths. And I think when you look at AI and you look at what people are trying to achieve, I think then and only then will you really start to see some major gains in some of these industries. Yeah. So, I think that's the important part that people need to, and so I guess speaking about our people, about Pacifica, there's a fear that and it, people think it's a new thing. Oh, robots are going to take over. In the 1950s, they were saying the same thing. Yeah. That robots are going to
take over all the jobs.
The robots were different. The robots were the assembly line factories. That was the robot then. Yeah. Today, the robot has been, anthropomorphized, right? Pomorphized? Yeah, anthropomorphization, where you humanize, robotics, right? And so today, AI and robotics are sort of almost synonymous. Yeah. And so that's the robot that we're afraid of now. Yeah. But what's important is, we'll get to a place where we'll be freed up from the tedious, menial tasks, and we get to focus on the stuff that really matters. I think once we get to that point, it's going to be good. But make no mistake, I think we were talking before, around sunset industries. Yeah. There are, those are reality.
And that's something and that was probably the first time I'd really, looked into it. And I've spoken about it on this podcast before. And so a lot of my research is stolen from what you'd researched. So if any of it's wrong, it's all your fault.
Always. I was like, yeah, absolutely.
But I guess the Pasi initiative and your drive to make that happen, I think that was the first time when you approached me. And so can you speak to a bit of like just your heart, just coming back and like, where are our people? I guess that's what you said.
Yeah, I think, I went away And, there were snapshots. I'd come back and I'd see it, I'd go into the office and people say, who's that? Who's that sitting? And during that whole period we were away, and I'd come back and I'd sort of try and be as inconspicuous as possible. I didn't want to sort of, but what I also noticed is that, I thought there would be a lot more Tovias, or girl Tovias as well, but there were very few. In fact, I feel like the industry has grown, but we haven't grown at the same rate. You know what I mean? And that was a concern for me, because, again, talking about sunset industries, or you're talking about residual income in the home, or household income, and the amount of money that Pacifica families were taking home. Reality is they were maxing out, because there's only so many overtime hours that you can do, right? And so then the only way that you could do it is by finding higher paid roles. But it's not about chasing the money, because once you start chasing the money, then you're heading down a whole nother rabbit hole, right? It was about finding meaningful jobs, meaningful roles that you could get involved in. And I think that's where, I started thinking about, how could I bring people into the world that I live in, so that we live in, so that they could understand and see, actually, this isn't as hard as what I thought it would be, right? And, I remember reading somewhere that, the information that's contained on a single daily newspaper today is the equivalent to the amount of information that someone would learn in their entire lifetime in the early 1900s, right? So you take that same calculation and you put it on our kids, right? And imagine how much information they're working through, sifting through, how much data is being passed by these kids, who are naturally connected, because we came into the digital realm, right? We came and there was no digital, and then we connected into it. These kids don't know how to be disconnected, because they grew up and the internet was already there.
Born into the matrix.
Absolutely. And the Wi-Fi router is like, what happened? And they just go crazy. So for us, we had these conversations early in the house. I used to speak at a lot of schools in Manila, and I'd talk about, the difference between creation and consumption, and oftentimes after I'd speak and I'd talk about safety, cybersecurity, and cyberbullying, and how to ensure that your kids aren't getting caught up in that. And parents would come up to me and they'd talk to me and they'd say, they'd ask me, how did you get into the role that you're in, so that they can direct their kids? And I said, because my kid, he's really, really into technology, right? And I'd say, okay, so talk me through that. What do you mean by he's really into it? When he turns on his iPad and he's playing, he's just always on it. And I said, okay. So I said, what I would encourage you to do is talk to your boy about how do you create something? How do you use that tool? And because in our house, you get 30 minutes a day to consume. You want to play a game? Start your 30 minutes, man. And we have timers. Like the iPad is a 15-minute block, and there are only 3 people. We entrusted the code to our daughter now, our eldest. So myself, my wife, and my daughter, we know the passcode, but they only get 30 minutes. So they get the first 15, then they come back and they get the passcode, and they go to the next 15. Obviously we expand that and we extend it, but we're very clear on the fact that if you're consuming, you get your 30 minutes, get that out of your system. But if you want to create, have at it.
Okay.
No problem.
Go for your life.
My son created a PowerPoint presentation when he was 7. Created his first chatbot when he was 8.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so, because they're allowed to sit there, provided that it doesn't get in the way of your sports commitments, doesn't get in the way with the family commitments, doesn't get in the way with your school commitments. As long as it doesn't, encroach on that, you're good to go, right? And so, our kids jump on that, and like, for example, my daughter, I showed her a video of something I'd created, and she laughed, and she goes, "Oh, I remember when we did my migration video, Dad. When she was, I think she was 9 or going on 10 at the time, and she knows things about, my kids know things about PowerPoint that people don't know, right? Because they create, and they don't, yes, they consume, they're kids, and so they naturally want to play games. They naturally want to gravitate towards that. But I strongly recommend to parents that as long as your kids are young, fight the urge to let the iPad parent them. Fight the urge to put them in front of a screen and let them sort of vegetate there. It's like get them to jump on Unity, jump on Scratch, and just allow the make sure that the cars still have rocket boosters, the horses still have wings, because they're in that creative realm where they haven't been conditioned to gravity yet, like us, right? We have to sort of tap into a different part of our brain to be, to sort of expound on that creativity. Whereas for kids right here, right now, they're still in that place, right? And so, that's what we want, and so Pasi is that. Pasi is, don't get conditioned to Sunset Industries. Just because Dad went and worked there, I'll bet you $100 that Dad doesn't want you to follow. I'll bet you that if I spoke to your family and I asked them, do you want your son to come and work with you in the freezing works? And build their family the same way that you built it, where you worked, hard, blood, sweat, and tears to get your deposit so you could buy a house, and or shall we go and find them something else to do, something that will elevate them? But every parent, without fail, will tell you, give them something better, right? And that's where Pasi comes from, because and then getting people like yourself, who have pretty much gone through the same journey, right? And we see something better for our kids as well. And then getting people like you to sit down with kids and mentor them and help them see something different, pull them out of the reality of where they live into a place where you can say, you belong here, right? Don't be afraid, and I think that's the cool part, and people say, I remember I sat down with someone and they heard me talking to someone else about it, and they said, wow, that's a really hard job, that's really, it's going to be a little bit uphill, like that. And I just said, but, that's why my knees are black. This is what I do, man, and if I, if not now, when, and if not you, who, right? And so, it's cool. I like it.
Just one of the, I guess that's the thing, like that. What I try and share on here is just those pathways, or how people get here. But there was something interesting you wrote, and I don't know how we make it happen around apprenticeships. And like, how does that become a thing? Because that's such when you're talking about specialists, solar panels, and everyone had to go learn. And then even air conditioning, you see all these guys who are technicians, but all they did is just watch the other guy do it, and now they're the specialists.
Absolutely. There's a major gap, and like I said before off air, internships don't work. They don't work. That 1 year, tick a box and bring them in. I remember talking to someone, they said, but isn't the internship to give you the experience of what it's like to work in the industry? I said, but what is the real experience? Check in with the person, right? And I'll talk about a story where I was talking about the intern, and I saw this program come out, where people were talking about, we're going to do this internship, and and there was all this, bravado where we challenge your company to take on a intern from Pasifika and Māori, And I was like, these guys have no idea, zero idea, right? Because some of the things that they were saying was, get a really great job and then pay off your student loan, right? I was like, and so I'll give it to you like this. You've got a multinational, and they'll remain nameless, but you've got a multinational that is sort of doing amazing things, and share prices is on a steady climb and has been for a while, and they're taking on interns, and I remember sitting down with the intern. I said, "How much do you get paid?" The intern said, "No." I said, "Look, it's okay. I'm not gonna go and tell anyone or anything like that, right? But how much do you get paid?" And he said, $48,000. And I said, "So that's $4,000 per month, before tax." I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "So after tax, if you're on a student loan, then you go on the, as you and I know, you're on SL, right? You're on the SL for a long time. And then, what's the main one? It's M, right? M. Thank you, M.
It was a long time waiting for that.
Oh, bro, that M was a pay rise, man. I got to tell you.
No, I think I actually checked. We'll see if you find out. Oh, your tax code's wrong. Okay,
I'd like to do a drawdown, please. I was like, oh my gosh, what's your client number? I know my client number. Like, man, terrible. And so then, I was talking to this, really lovely girl. And, and I'm talking to her on the phone and I'm like, oh, okay, so, can I ask you a question? And she goes, yeah, sure. And I said, who do you live at home with? Or do you live by yourself? Or do you live with your parents? And go, oh, yeah, I live at home with my parents. I said, do you have siblings? And she laughs. And she goes, yes. And I said, so, how many siblings do you have? Do you have a big family? She goes, oh, yeah, I got a big family. And I have 8 siblings, right? And she's the second eldest. And I said, okay, so I pretty much know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Where did your first paycheck go? Where did your first paycheck go? And she goes, well, to be honest, it went to my parents. And I said, but so did the second, right? And then the third, and then the fourth. And she goes, yeah. I said, because you've got younger siblings, because you're the second eldest and you're 20, so I'm assuming that you've got siblings who are probably around 2, 3, 5. She goes, yeah. And I said, so Mum's probably not working because someone has to stay home and look after them, right? And look after them and care for them. And she goes, yeah. So it's just Dad working? She goes, yeah. I said, so here's the thing. People are going to create programs and they're saying, oh, go get a great job and you can go and pay off your student loan. You get the money and where does it go? Does it go to student loan? Absolutely not. Come on, let's be realistic. That paycheck is going straight back home, right? That's what it's dealing with. And people are creating programs and saying, oh, you get paid a lot of money. $48,000 ain't a lot of money. I was an intern at Microsoft and I was getting paid $40,000, $40,000, right? And I'm talking about 2004. That's 16 years ago. That's $500 incremental every year over 16 years. And this girl is in a multinational and she's getting paid $48,000. I'm like, no, man. And that's why there's that whole notion of nothing for us. Don't ignore us if it's for us. Nothing about us without us. If you're going to create programs, who in my community did you come and talk to? Because my koi ingas is still sitting there. No one's coming talking to them. The kingas are over there and no one's talking to them. So how did you figure out your program, right? Or did you guys just get together and figure out this little program by yourselves and then high-fived and then went down to the pub and had a few drinks and thought, wow, we've done our bit for the world in diversity and inclusion? It doesn't ride, right? And that's why these internships, these 1 year, let's tick a box, let's bring them in. Don't get me wrong, there's a place for them. But this cannot be the only solution, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at the comparison between the apprenticeships of 20 years ago and the apprenticeships that are available now on apprenticeship.org, there's no difference. Because there's no technology apprenticeships available, right? And so, you know, we're going to change that. You know, I mean, that's all I can say right now, but watch this space because, you know, and then one day you can play this back to some people and say, oh, yeah, you know, we were ahead because we're already there. Yeah. You know, and, you know, it's, you know, and I know I get really passionate about this because if there's one thing that I know that we need to be better on is understanding what we're worth, right? You know, when it comes to money, I don't care anymore. I just, you know, I talk about money. I talk about money and I help people to talk about money as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't talk about money, you know, it's that old saying of, if you don't have a plan for yourself, someone else has got a plan for you. Yeah. Right? So it's better you have a plan for yourself.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens to money. If you don't have a value for yourself, someone's going to give you a value, right? Someone's going to give you value and you're going to have to try and figure it out. And yeah, I'd rather come up with my own value things. So, yeah. I don't know. I think if we can fix, you know, if we can convince people to look at the apprenticeship piece, I think, you know, we'll be able to figure it out. You know, I think we'll be able to do it. But yeah, could be something we can discuss offline. Off, yeah.
Oh, man, it's just been, I guess, just your story and being able to share has been awesome. I don't know, is there anything else you wanted to share, man? Because it's just so
it's
much.
Been good just talking, man.
Oh well, yeah, and I'm glad people get to hear the stories. It's one I really wanted to capture, and just, I guess your journey has been amazing, and just seeing where you're going to keep going. The bounce, you know, you've got like constantly got that plan, and you know, it's like is that just how long you feel your service, like I can help during that period, and then I need to move? What forces you to move, like have that plan and go?
It's a good question. I like to work to deadlines. And I think, you know, what I discovered, because I was in the same role in Microsoft for 6 years, and I didn't, you know, I kept doing the same thing. And I remember I had this conversation with, you know, and I was walking out to lunch with some colleagues of mine who were doing exactly the same role as me. And we were talking about our performance reviews, and we were getting ready for our performance reviews and things that we were going to discuss. Yeah. And then I said to them, oh, you know, I just want to get to this level. And they all laughed, you know, because we have stock levels in Microsoft. I want to get to this level. And they all laughed, and then we kept walking. And I didn't pay any attention. I just thought they were all laughing. Afterwards, one of the guys pulls me aside, who's a really good friend of mine. Now, you know, we've kept in touch. And he goes to me, can I ask you a personal question? And I said, yeah, of course. What's up? And he goes, are you really on that level? And I said, what level? You know, the level, you know, because you're talking about getting to this new level, but that, you know, and I mean, the way Microsoft works, it works on stock levels. Yeah. And at the time I was level 58, and I wanted to get to a level 59.
Okay, yeah.
And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, because all of us are on level 61.
Not the winning 2 award.
Yeah. And so this is, I'm still brand new in the company, right? I'm still in Microsoft New Zealand. I haven't gone to the Philippines yet. Yeah. And so then I said, oh. Man. And he goes, you need to get that fixed. I said, really? And he goes, yeah. That's not right. Yeah. You know, this is, you know, my Palangi brother, you know, talking to me. And I said, okay, thanks for that. And then I went and had my boss up about it. And I wrote this long letter, and I found it recently. Yeah. And I kept it, and I found it, and I told him, you know, I don't appreciate this.
Yeah, 6 years.
It's like, I deserve more than what you've been. And, so we got together, we had this meeting, and then he goes to me across the table and he's like going, look, I read your letter and there were some interesting points in there. Do I feel like I've been taking advantage of cheap labor? Yep, I guess so. It's like, you just said that out loud. It's like, that wasn't a thought bubble. You just said it out loud. I'm just saying, and that's where I realized, man, so we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
We're not, and that year the company recognized, and it was the only time I was recognized here in New Zealand. The company recognized that they needed to make things right for me. And so, that year they allowed me to, they obviously increased my salary. They changed my stock level and all the rest of it. And then they moved, and my wife and I were given these travel vouchers where we then traveled to, I wanted to go to Fiji, but, Linda wanted to go to, so we ended up going to, I think, see her family in the UK, and then we went to Spain, to Rome. So it was really great, and it sort of helped to restore my faith in the company after that unfortunate incident. But it also woke me up, and I go back to that story. If you don't have a plan for yourself,
someone else.
Don't worry. Lots of people have got a plan for you, right? Give it to that guy sitting in the corner. He never says anything, and he's more than willing to take on more work, And it's really cost effective because we don't pay him much.
Throw him a couple more coins and we might think we're doing him a favor.
It was like, wow, this is really great. So, and again, it can't just be about money, right? But at the same time, there's got to be a balance where you don't want to become resentful. So have the conversation. I remember having conversations with people and saying, one of the brothers in Manila, he was getting ready to move to Singapore. And he was negotiating, and he was negotiating with them, and they said, we're going to keep you on the same salary, but because in Singapore we only pay 15% tax maximum, you're getting 17% of what you would have paid in taxes back. And so in effect, they didn't increase the salary. They just took advantage of the tax level, right?
Yeah.
And then my question to him was, so let me ask you a question. So if Singapore decides to change the tax rate, are they going to increase your salary so your net income goes up as well? Probably not. He goes, yeah, you're right. And I said, so what are you going to do? And he goes, I met, they got one of the HR people that I know, and she told me it's a really great deal. And I said, okay, thank you, but how do you feel? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, you want to go for more, right? And he goes, well, I don't feel like, I said, and there are some things that you have to know. There's a difference between earning power and saving power, right? You can earn more, but if your living costs are higher, you're not saving more, right? So you're making more money, but you're spending more.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take your eyes off earning power and look at saving power, are you able to save more in this new package that you're getting? If you are, you're winning.
Yeah.
But if you're not, something's not right. And so I said to him, are you saving more on this current salary? And he goes, no, about the same. I said, then net, you're losing. Law of atrophy says that if you're staying the same, you're actually declining.
Yeah.
So you have to factor in growth so that if the law of atrophy applies, then that becomes that, right? But if you're that, law of atrophy says, right? And so I had that conversation with him, and I said to him, you should ask for an extra $2,000 US per month. He's like, what? I said, dude, what are they going to say? No?
Yeah.
Cool. So who cares? But you should at least ask, right? And he goes, no, I can't do it. And I said, look, you should go ask. Just ask. He goes, yeah, but everyone's already told me it's a great offer. It's a great offer, and I should be really grateful that I'm getting this offer. And I don't want to come across ungrateful. And I said, okay. I said, but Joy and Mateo are going with his son and his wife. They're going with you, right? He goes, yeah. And goes, oh, well, just ask for another 2,000. What's gonna hurt? They come back and say, oh, we'll give you 1,000.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh no. I said, oh, okay, no problem. I said, but just remember, I want you to do me a favor. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, just remember this conversation when you're sitting in that apartment with the lights turned off and one aircon unit on and you've got a candle in the table and you're eating noodles. Remember we had this conversation. And your son's looking at you from across the table thinking, Dad, why'd you move us here? Because we don't have any money.
Yeah.
Didn't take much to motivate him to then go back. He goes, you're right. I'm going to go back and ask for 2,000. And I said, good boy.
Yeah.
That's what we do, man. We go back and we push.
Yeah.
And I said, so now you're ready to ask for 2,000. Go ask for 3,000. And he's like, what? What are you doing? And he goes, dude, you're going to ask for 2,000. You might as well ask for 3,000. He goes, well, I don't know. It's got ask for 3,000.
Yeah.
And so he went and did it. They got angry. They got really angry. They was like, we really trusted you and we really believe in you. I was like, blow it up. I don't care. They gave him 2,000 extra.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And I said, see, you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company. If they need money, they will find money somewhere.
Yeah.
So don't be fooled by that. This is the only budget we've got. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think our people need to understand that. Understand your value, understand your worth, and don't be greedy about it. Don't make it about money. Make it about what your conviction, right? And when you sit back and you look at what you're able to achieve, are you saving more? Are you making more impact with the dollars that you're making? Are you doing something that's changing the next generation that's coming through? If you're doing all of that, you're winning. But if you're just getting something, I upgraded my car, or it's like, to each his own. But that's not winning in my books. Winning in my books is when you look around and you see your kids are thriving, and you see your partner or your other half is doing well, and they feel good about where they're at, feel good about what you're doing, and they feel like you're contributing to something greater than yourselves. That's winning. That's what I'm talking about. So
that's what I'm talking about. Bro, it's been worth the wait, man. I'm sorry it took so long to get you out here to record a track.
Bro, honestly, I am so privileged to, and I've always avoided this, to be honest. Everyone says, you should come in. I was like, I'm right. But I jumped at the opportunity because I get to talk with, I get to meet this guy, but I also get to talk to people that I respect, and I respect, and I also have watched through the years, become something far greater, than even they imagined, right? And the stuff that you're achieving as well, bro. So, no, the pleasure's all mine for being here. So, thank you very much.
Before we go out, bro,
man.
I guess if we've spoken a lot about kids. Ain't no kids listening to this, man. so the guys who are sitting, home listening to this in a factory job and going, it's easy for you to say, I've got my kids to feed and don't think about the money. But if it's tech is the future, where do I start?
Good question. So one of the things that, we, and when I say we, I mean the collective we, those of us who are trying to start all of these not-for-profits, is we need to do a better job of, and I think in one of the articles I talk about that, do a better job of actually consolidating this stuff to make it easier for parents. In one of the articles I wrote, I spoke about, the biggest, I talked about the 8 reasons why your kids won't get a job in tech, right? And of all the 8 reasons, there were 6 there that were of different categories. But there was one category that had 2 points, and that was about family and parents, right? Because that's the part where if the parents are, like in Bussy, when we mentor the child, we're not mentoring the child, we're mentoring the family. And so if we don't help the parents to be supportive of the child, and show them, and support their new direction, they'll default back to what they know, right? And it's not because parents don't want anything better for their children. It's just they do what they you know what you know. And so what we need to do as a collective is do a better job of consolidating this stuff for parents to be able to understand and find and learn and grow, right? In the meantime, however, whilst we start to figure that out, my recommendation is, look for groups like if you're stuck, come talk to us at Pacifica and IT. That not-for-profit was designed not to. Our job is not to become a provider to people. That's not it. The reason why we set up programs like Bussy was because our job is to find, we look at the life cycle from early childhood education right through to leadership. And then we look for gaps in amongst that life cycle of, Tana goes to early childhood and he starts at school, preschool. What digital education is he getting there? Then he goes through to primary school. What is he getting there? Secondary school, what is he getting there? Tertiary, if he goes to tertiary, or that catchment between, what is he getting there? First job in tech, what is he getting there? Breaking through that ceiling of their first leadership role. And then eventually, a senior leader. What are the things that are missing there that will help them to really go through that journey, right? And I can speak from experience because I've gone, and I'm still going through that, right? And so then we, as Pacifica and IT, we recognize the gaps. We iterate. We saw a gap where primary school kids were not, being encouraged to look at tech. And then we launched Bussy. We'll iterate Bussy two more times, V2, V3, and then we'll pass it on to an organization complete with funding so they can then scale that out to parents, right? So that's the vision. And then we look at something else, we're currently looking at the catchment between secondary and tertiary. If you're going to tertiary, you've got a fair idea of where you want to head. But what about the person who comes out of secondary school and says, I want to do a gap year? And the gap year becomes gap decade. It's like gap decade gap becomes gap life. And so then we look at it and we think, how do we, what's the program we need to run in there? We're about to launch a program called Plot, because taking it from my experience and just looking around Auckland and Wellington and seeing a lot of young guys coming through who have been in the industry for 19 years, like yourself, right? Coming through, but now they're struggling to get into that level of leadership because how do I do it? How do you talk about money? How do you talk about worth? How do you talk about the fact that I have leadership skills that may not be in the context that you're talking about, but this is how I was raised. Talk about guilds. What are you talking about? Man, I've been raised, and let me come on Sunday and I will show you a guild. And so then, it's helping people to understand their strengths and being able to articulate that when they go into these conversations. Not being afraid of your context and not being afraid to actually defend or stand up for yourself, right? And say, well, that whole piece. There are a lot of young guys who are struggling, and girls, a lot of young guys and girls who are struggling to get through. Girls even more so because they're combating with the fact that they're female, and being brown. It's just it's just the double. It's like the double whammy, double whammy, right? And so then, what we wanted to do was create a program that would help them to listen to speakers, listen to people who have gone through that journey. We've got some work that we're doing with ITM, the ITSMF. Oh, wow. So IT Senior Management Forum out of the US, who focus on African Americans who are breaking into that senior management level in tech. And then I have a couple of conversations happening at the moment with High Tech, which is the Hispanics IT Executive Council. And the reason why we're talking to them is because, as Pacifica, we need to recognize who we are. We're not the majority by any stretch, but we're also not the indigenous. So we have to respect the indigenous And we don't want to ever feel like we're trying to displace them.
Yeah.
We're a third. And so when you talk to the US, African Americans are now citizens. They're not the majority, no, not by any stretch. Hispanics, they're not the majority, but neither of them are the indigenous, right? Because they're not First Nation.
Yeah.
So therefore, being able to talk to them and say, how do you operate in that environment where you feel good, right? And come out of a place of strength. And so we're launching that program in February called Pacifica Leaders of Tech, so PLOT, right?
Nice.
And that will help our young leaders to come through and really, talk to them. We'll get speakers in front of them, and we'll have quarterly events where we'll introduce new people that will come in and they'll talk about their journey, but more importantly, talk about how you overcome some of those barriers. Like when I was coming through and people said, oh, you're too quiet. You're disengaged. I was like, did you grow up in my house?
Come into this room and I'll engage.
Did you see my dad? Because when dad speaks, no one wants to engage. Everyone's just sit and listen. So, and for a long time I was apologetic for that, because it just wasn't the norm. I wasn't part of the cookie cutter brigade. I didn't fit into the molds that they had set for males in IT, right? And so now, because of this whole drive towards diversity and inclusion, everyone's sort of like, oh, no, we got to do it the right way. We got to do it the right way. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it. But let's take it another step further. So coming back to your question, how do we do it? Reach out to us, specifically in IT. We'll direct you. There are a lot of, and again, there are a lot of, coding clubs and all of that focus on helping kids. But again, it's being able to consolidate them in a meaningful way so that parents can look and say, oh, is there one out west in Massey? Right? And then be able to go there. We don't have that yet. But we'll work on that to make sure that we've got something available at each level, from early childhood right through to plot, right through to leadership. So, yeah.
And awesome, bro.
Yeah, bro.
No, that's us. Thanks for laying a track with me, man. It's been awesome. Cool. It's been an amazing journey. And we'll probably have to get you in again, bro.
no, thanks for having me. It's been good, and I was so into one of the other things that I felt like I owed you a debt for helping us out with Bussy. You know what I mean? And those kinds of things I don't take lightly. Being able to grab people and put them in front of kids who are looking for something different. And so the work that you did there, and being one of the mentors for Bussy, is bigger than what you know. And and we're looking to do Bussy 2.0 when we go into 2021, and then hopefully if we can squeeze in Bussy 3.0, then we can package it all up, complete with funding, and then we'll hand it off to another organization that has paid employees to run it. So it's going to be good. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, bro. Hey, so people want to, I'll put the links in the show notes, but if people want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way, bro?
Hit me up on email at toviavailua@gmail.com. I think, or even, get in on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is really important. It's important for our people to start, presence is everything. Being there, you may not be vocal, you may not be but just being there and understanding what's going on and what's flowing through. That's important. So I'm not on Facebook.
Who did I just add?
and that's an intentional thing for me. I came off Facebook. I am on Instagram, but I've only got, I think, 4 friends on Instagram. I'm like terrible, that's another thing. Maybe just final comment is, even our 15-year-old's not on social media, and as someone who's on a school board, the damage that you see as a result of social media, we have to protect our kids and make sure that they're ready for it. You can't give what I would call a loaded digital gun and say to them, hey, have at it, practice, learn. It's like, you know, because they'll turn that gun on themselves.
Yeah.
Knowingly and unknowingly. You know, when you go out and you fire something into the digital abyss, thinking that it'll never come back, but it always comes back. I know, because when I was hiring people, I was, you know, checking through their social media, right?
Yeah.
You know, you get this. I remember one time this guy came in really, really, you know, put together. Jump onto his social media, and you know, he's cross-eyed holding a bong. I'm like,
was this when I applied?
You know, and I'm like, you know, to each his own.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man,
you look so polished today.
Yeah, I was like, dude, you know, and we never would have, you know, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter so much, but because it was this person who was going to be focused on our education programs.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just not the right. It's not aligned.
We wanted a really strong role model.
Yeah.
You know, where kids could look and go, oh, you know, I want. And you know, the reality is, you know, they're gonna hit all sorts of snags along the way as children anyway. But we didn't want our program to be a snag in any way.
Exactly.
And so, you know, again, social media is something that we need to be very careful of, very mindful of, and hopefully we can, before we allow our children to get involved, that we, you know, start to teach them first, you know, what it means to be a good digital citizen and all the rest of it. So, yeah.
Nice final point. Before we go, bro, we are recording on a Wednesday night. So before we end, bro, the result tonight.
Oh, come on, man. Why are we even having this conversation? You know, I wouldn't come in here if you were wearing a blue jersey. You know,
well, we're just heading to the final after this. So thanks for those words.
I know Roger's not going to be very happy with that comment, but you know, again, we're talking about reality. So
awesome, bro. Thank you, man.
All good. Hey, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Cheers for that.
All good.